So even if we start, so we're going on live now, even if we start and
where's Mamuzo?
Mamuzo, I don't know, she's supposed to be here. She should be joining us soon. So it's you and Mamuzo, right?
Right.
I need to actually confirm with Lakumi if it's Mamuzo or Tunde.
No, it's Mamuzo.
Okay, she's not in there. Okay, we're going live now. Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. I'm Ayo Mairo-Ese, and it is time for today's national newspaper review. And joining me today to review our stories today in Freshly Pressed 981, I have Nwaji. Good morning, Nwaji. How are you today?
Good morning, Ayo. Hope you're well. How's everything going?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to hear your voice. I think I haven't spoken to you in like almost close to a month now.
Yeah, it's probably been about a month. I was away for a couple of weeks, so it's been a while.
Good to have you back. Welcome. Hopefully we'll be joined by Mamuzo as well, who's going to be joining us on the show very shortly. We're streaming live on YouTube. If you'd like to go onto YouTube, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. There's Mamuzo. And then we are also on your Twitter handle. If you'd like to send us a message on Twitter, it's at smooth981FM. Use the hashtag freshlypressed981. You can also send us a WhatsApp message to share your thoughts with us or to respond to any of the stories this morning. And the number to send your message to is 0809 444 0981. You can find our analyst. You can find Nwaji at the corporate MC. That's the corporate to the K, and Mamuzo Wokoro on Twitter. Let's go straight into our stories for today. Good morning, Mamuzo. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ayo. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Good morning, Nwaji.
Hello, Mamuzo.
Great.
Excellent. Mamuzo, we can't see your face, so we can kindly, we're seeing a black screen, but I hope you can help us because we'd love to see as you speak to us this morning. We'll start with the first story, and I believe I'm starting with you, Mamuzo.
Yes.
Killer fruit juice. Kano confirms 10 dead, 400 hospitalized. Lagos Cross River, Sokoto, 1 residents. This story is in the Punch newspaper. Very unfortunate news. The Kano state government on Thursday said 10 people had died and 400 others hospitalized after drinking a poisonous fruit juice. They said that the poisonous fruit juice claimed 3 lives and led to the hospitalization of 183 others. The State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Aminu Sanyawa, in a video recording, made this known, talked about kidney-related ailments. Some other parts of states in the country are also worried about this. You know, NAFDAC has put out a warning saying that do not drink anything that doesn't have their approval in terms of their number, also to check for expiry dates. But one thing in this article is that they don't mention the name of the drink so that people can watch out for it. The only thing it's being referred to as is killer juice. And, you know, Ramadan period, a number of Muslim faithfuls break with these juices because of the food they're supposed to break with. But unfortunately, it's not, the name isn't mentioned. But please take us through this story, Mamuzo.
Okay, Ayo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, unfortunately, I'm not able to come on. I've been trying to get my video back up. I don't know why. Okay. So please pardon me for now. I'm just dealing with some issues here. Okay, so this story, of course, is very unfortunate, and it's sad because we didn't just hear the news today. I mean, it was in March that the Kano state government, announced that there's some Jews that is, they were not quite clear then what it was, but they were saying that there's a strange disease, that was killing people in Kano State. And I'd imagine that investigations should have commenced right away. And if investigations commence that early, why is it still unknown to us what this killer juice is? It is still reported as an unidentified killer juice. This is a technology era where you don't need so much time to investigate such cases. Put the product out there for people to see, put the brand name for people to see, put the components out there for people to see. We clearly understand what is going on and then how to safeguard ourselves. Because it's not a matter of the police coming to protect us right now. It's a matter of each and every one of us Nigerians protecting ourselves by the choices we make on the shelves of the shops we purchase items from. So I wouldn't want to buy off a big poisonous product, with my own money. So I think that the government should quickly, immediately put the product out there. Why is it shrouded in secrecy? Why is it still unidentified? It's almost over a month now. I remember it was on the 19th of March, it was announced that we had this substance. And right now we're having 10 people dead from the situation, as well as over 400 people who are now having terminal diseases. So I want to appeal to the government to do all that is in its power. And that includes NAFDAC. I haven't heard from NAFDAC yet. I'm wondering if NAFDAC had actually
they actually made a statement that we should,
I haven't heard.
They talked about the chemical that's causing, it's lethal, and hydroxylamine, which is, they said is used for terrorism. So NAFDAC has come out to explain that. But
I'm talking about NAFDAC. They've explained the components as responsible for the disease, right? Mm-hmm. But that is not enough information. They're only scaring us. Do you understand?
Yes.
The best thing to do is to show us what that is. So that is a warning sign. Put it out there, all of our media, and say this should not be taken by anyone. And then Nigerians at this point are looking for cheaper products to get by. Things are a bit tough out there in society. So the cheaper the better, right? But then if it will cause us so much pain, why? So I pledge the government to do all in its part to ensure that this product is announced, it's brought out to the public eye. Let's see it. Let's know who's behind the brand. And I'm grateful that he said, they made some progress with apprehending some of the people who actually produced the juice. So that's a good one. But then it is not good enough to tell us something without proving to us that this is what is behind the cause of that terminal disease and deaths as well.
Absolutely. And you echo the thoughts of a number of our listeners who have sent in comments as to why they are hiding, or why the name of this juice isn't being told. I'll just take Kiemi from Marina saying, I am maniacally bewildered that the name of this juice is being protected. Most importantly, I want to know if NAFDAC verified that juice safe for consumption. No, they didn't, according to this report. The same NAFDAC that verified our vaccine safe for use. Imagine how many government agencies only appear to be working. Please ensure that you check your products, especially consumables, to ensure they have a NAFDAC number, because that shows that they've gone through the process and they've been certified as fit for use. In the meantime, check expiry dates and others, and when we get the name, we'll definitely let you know. Nwaji, let's move on to our next story. Federal government lifts ban on activation of new SIM cards, revises policy. As expected, this was very big news once it broke. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, yesterday approved the activation of new subscriber identification module SIM cards. Now, Nwaji, beyond the details of this story, we talked about also that they're revising the National Digital Identity Policy for SIM card registration. I'd love for you to talk on this, but I also like you to tell us, when a policy is being introduced, or after the end of a particular policy, especially when it's been said to address a particular issue, there should be a review as to how effective that policy is, especially a policy such as this that had such a big impact on small businesses, on Nigerians, and why was it justified as to the minister stopping the registration of new SIM cards? By the way, this activation will begin on Monday, April 19. Please, Nwaji, take us through the story.
Well. You asked the $1 million question, and I think you're going to get a 100 naira answer to that particular question. It's just what it is, unfortunately, with regards to policy reviews and the efficacy of that policy. Nobody can have that answer to that question unless the individuals that stated this policy come out and produce some kind of report as to the stats and data that they were able to acquire, how many people they were able to convert, how many people they were able to get registered and everything else. In the absence of that, we're just going to continue to play a guessing game with regards to whether or not this particular policy was effective. I'm in two minds with this, Ayo, because for me, I understand the spirit of it. I understand the importance of making sure you have some kind of identification scheme with regards to people who now own SIM cards and everything else. But I think the way in which they went about it was actually quite quite confusing because it just came out of nowhere. There were constant shifts in the dates. There were constant shifts in the understanding. A lot of people had NIN numbers and didn't know they had NIN numbers. And then they now found themselves queuing in lines during a pandemic and putting themselves at risk. And there was all this confusion about what you now need to do. There was a confusion between the difference of the NIN number and then the national identity number, national identity card number. And it's just all this confusing information that goes out that causes these issues. And then to your latter point that you made about the knock-on effect on small businesses and the operators of telecommunication companies that now have to go 4 months without selling SIM cards. And that is devastating revenue, especially to the small businesses that actually now serve as distributors of the SIM cards and everything else. And the minimal margins that they get from selling SIM cards still create some kind of livelihood. So in the absence of that for 4 months, you had individuals who were pretty much not generating revenue in that particular sense. And that is quite saddening. And then when you now begin to talk about growth, you talk about inclusiveness, you talk about penetration into making sure more and more people have access to digital means, data and everything else. But if people cannot buy SIM cards, you cannot expect there to be any kind of growth. So these are the knock-on effects of not having a robust plan, not communicating a robust plan, and then not coming back to Nigerians to also further communicate the efficacy of this thing so that we can understand and appreciate what the end goal result was. And these are just things that we constantly have to debate in Nigeria, that we constantly have to scratch our heads about, just trying to get basic answers to basic things. But notwithstanding, the ban has been lifted. As you indicated, Monday is the date that things now get back to normal. So telecommunication providers can begin to sell SIMs. Again, you can begin to see robust marketing campaigns, so that way you can get some kind of economic activity moving again. The telecommunications sector is a gigantic sector in Nigeria. And then once you have stimulation of movement in that particular sector, then the economy begins to pick up because you do have some commerce and trade happening as a result of that. So let's hope that this thing is laid to rest, and then we can just get back to some semblance of normality with regards to economic activity.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nwaji. Let's go on to our next story. But before then, just to mention that we have a number of comments. And if you'd like to also comment on YouTube, you can use the YouTube chat box to do so. Federal government on patriotic citizens made Twitter snub Nigeria for Ghana. This stage, reading this headline, I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this, Mamuzo. According to the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, he blamed those he described as unpatriotic Nigerians for the decision by Twitter to make Ghana its African headquarters. He mentioned that, a direct quote from him. So clearly the decision was not a commercial and business one, citing the numbers that we have in Nigeria. But I think Twitter has the prerogative and the exclusive right as to where to site its headquarters. But I hope that this will serve as a lesson to Nigerians. And was referring to the fact that we went on Twitter during the NSAS protest, and we were in his opinion bad, we're painting Nigeria in a bad light, and this was discouraging. So Mamuzo, what would come to my mind as a Nigerian would be, okay, so it's not the government policies that's responsible for this. It's not the ease or lack of ease of doing business. It's not democracy. That's why Twitter hasn't brought its headquarters. It's the Nigerian people. Please break this down for us.
Mr. Lai Mohammed has a way of throwing up such conversations, interesting conversations. Let's be fair here. We saw how the government responded to the NSAS protesters. Those who were in the lead, they were threatened, their accounts were frozen. That is very undemocratic. So I do not know why he would point fingers at the innocent Nigerian people for speaking up. And I must quickly mention here the reason, or one of the reasons why Twitter chose Ghana, and they made it clear in a statement. They said, as a champion for democracy, Ghana is a supporter of free speech. Now, we've had so many, they have spoken outrightly. You cannot speak so freely, and we know it. Even tried with that bill, freedom of information bill, that went back and forth. Was it last year or 2 years ago? The world is watching. We cannot pretend that because we want to brand a nation, we throw off our realities. How best can I speak of my nation if the reality on ground doesn't at least support some of these things? I'm patriotic. I think that I am a patriotic Nigerian, but I cannot now tell lies about how I'm feeling. These things, we're faced with insecurity issues, we're faced with inflation rates, we're faced with poor electricity supply, and we should smile and say Nigeria is the giant of Africa. The truth is that right now we're just, I don't want to use the word wallow, but right now we're just, it's just a nomenclature right now. And it's a shame that other African countries are waking up and challenging us economically and otherwise. It's sad that Nigeria lost the spot. Really, we should have been the hub where Twitter should come here and do business with us. But right now, the polity is heated up. There's insecurity, and I wouldn't put my money in a band or in an organization in a place where I'm not sure, of the security of my business. So I think that this is plainly a business, and we shouldn't become too sentimental about it. We should just go back in and then see how we can begin to tackle our issues. So what I expect the Minister for Information should say is that, it's unfortunate that this time we're tackled with so many issues and we're not being able to fully handle them, but we're trying to work to see that we handle situations, but not to put the blame back on us and then say that we're the ones who caused, this misfortune.
All right, thank you, Mamuzo. I want to mention that the government has also cited other big tech companies that have come to make their African home in Nigeria. Facebook is set to be coming to Nigeria in 2021. Google is here in Nigeria. They also mentioned, breweries, multinational food manufacturing giants like Kellogg's, who have set up their multi-billion naira factory in Nigeria. Just to hear from what they're saying in terms of what it means for other businesses. So some people have said, oh, what's our business? It's just Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Google, we have so on and so forth. But it points to the losses that we incur as a nation due to certain policies that do not support business growth in Nigeria. Definitely. And yes, and I don't know what I can see some comments coming through, but it's important that we face the real issues and not politicize matters, especially matters that are important for the economic growth of the nation. What Nigerians perhaps have expected would be for the minister to or a government spokesperson to analyze, review, see how we can improve, rather than maybe pointing fingers at people. I have so many comments to get through. Let me see if I can take one or two of them. Henry Manuel says, the unpatriotic Nigerians are elected political leaders and their appointees who, in words and actions, have made Nigeria unattractive through decades of failed and inconsistent government. And then Victor says, clearly, this government does not understand the connection between undemocratic values and economic growth. We must maximize our strength in number through attracting foreign investment. And then we have from Fatima from Victoria Island saying, good morning. Okay, I will not read what you can send that message to Lai Mohammed personally. She said he thinks Jack, the Twitter CEO, would establish a business in a country with government that constantly changes policies and kills businesses. The government needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror. One more comment and we'll move on to our next story. Please, why is this Twitter thing a big deal? Like I mentioned, the people are asking. Alhaji Lai Mohammed shouldn't be saying that. That is in mild terms. If these people complaining were investors, would they invest in a country like Nigeria? This government is so used to playing the blame game instead of doing the right thing. This is sad. Thank you for your comments, everyone. We'll go on to our next story here, and that is from the Premium Times. Nigeria suffers massive power outage as several plants break down. Talking about things that hamper businesses and business growth in Nigeria, Nwaji, power is obviously is very much at the top. Nigeria suffered an extensive power outage in recent weeks because 18 plants accounting for most of the electricity the country generates had faced operational problems, the government has said.
I always find it interesting when we look at the previous article and then you have, an individual in the position and in the capacity of Alhaji Lai Mohammed blaming Nigerians for going on social media and quote unquote bad-mouthing Nigeria, and that being the reason why you do not have international multinational conglomerates coming to Nigeria. But then we now connect it to this next story and we're still having a conversation about power outages. We're having a conversation about the generation of power being somewhere in the ballpark between 5,000 to 8,000 megawatts when we have a population of almost 200 million people. And then you now contrast that to the next biggest economy on the African continent, which is South Africa, who have a third of our population, but are generating somewhere in the ballpark between 60,000 to 70,000 megawatts. And that alone, without even necessarily going into the story about what are the challenges around power generation, should pretty much tell you about the state of the country and about how, frankly speaking, deluded we are. We're pointing fingers at other people as to this are the reasons why people, we're not getting international investments, we're not getting multinationals coming to Nigeria. But then we openly have situations where you, frankly speaking, do not have an enabling environment that is attractive enough for anybody to come in to want to do business with you. How can you be taken seriously when, number one, the basic amenity that's been in existence for the last 80 years, you cannot provide, which is electricity? How can anybody take you seriously when security is a problem? How can anybody take you seriously when capital flight is a problem? How can anybody take you seriously when corruption within government is a problem? How can anybody take you seriously if you want to set up a business in Nigeria and the quote unquote ease of doing business is still laden with institutional corruption? So I connect this electricity thing because for me, it is the basis of all our challenges. And for me, whenever I have conversations and people want to get into very intellectual debates, I always end with, we don't have lights. And whenever now, divert to make things, I always end, we don't have lights. And for me, until you sort out something as basic as electricity, and then frankly speaking, you cannot be invited to the big boy table to have a conversation. Why are we having these challenges? You're talking about power stations that are down. You're talking about power stations that are having gas challenges. Why? What could be the absolutely justifiable reason why such exists? There's a story that's coming up that's going to talk about how in the southwestern part of Nigeria, we're going to get 261 days of rainfall. Are you telling me you have not been able to capture water that we get constantly? We do not have droughts in certain part of the country. You cannot use technology to now ensure you have power generation through water. We're still having these conversations in 2021. So, for me, frankly speaking, I don't know what else there is to say. This story is not shocking. We've been talking about power challenges for years and years and years. And until there's a concerted leadership effort to actually tackle this problem, we're going to be having this conversation 15 years from now. And that's just frankly speaking the truth.
Thank you for speaking the truth. Nwaji, you sound like, those dads that you never want to get into trouble with because they just analyze your life for you and you just go back and just think about it and you just shake your head. You're speaking the truth, nothing but facts. And it's honestly very unfortunate. I'm trying to use a very mild word so that I don't, I'm trying to be positive, but it's really, really unfortunate where we see ourselves today. Angel Santos on YouTube says, please, has everyone forgotten how a government, so going back to the Twitter story, government official threatened to sue Twitter for supporting the NSAS protest. Jay from Lekki is of the opinion that the Minister of Power should resign if he should resign if he has any integrity. How can 18 plants have operational problems at the same time? All right. I remember one government official warning Twitter's. Okay, yeah, still talking about Twitter. Thank you, Justin. And let's move on to our next story. And this is slightly on security, but also touching on the local elections taking place in Rivers State over the weekend. Despite insecurity, Nigerian police deploy 17,500 personnel for local election. Premium Times reports that despite insecurity ravaging virtually every part of Nigeria, the police in Rivers State said they have deployed no fewer than 17,500 personnel for Saturday's local government elections in the state. The police spokesperson in the state, Nnamdi Omoni, made this known in a statement in Port Harcourt on Thursday. So reading this story, Mamuzo, there are a number of things I considered. Number one is how factual is the claim that 17,500 personnel would be deployed. We had to take the words or the statement of the authorized spokesperson for the police, but also putting that side by side by an approximate number of 371,800 policemen in Nigeria. That means that 5% of this number are going to be in Rivers State to monitor local government elections. Again, speaks to why elections have to be almost like a war zone. We deploy army tanks, policemen to monitor election processes. Please take us through the story, Mamuzo.
I want to believe that to a large extent, some police men would have been demoralized by, the recent developments in the Southeast and other parts of the country, and saying you want to release a quarter of your squad for a local government election. I understand his concerns because of the upheaval. So I must admit that, yes, I mean, everyone is trying to guard, to ensure that there's double protection everywhere. But then we must do it to a level of tact, So when you deploy the 17,500 police officers, and then you're asking people who have orderlies not to bring their orderlies, my thinking is, why? Why? Because I mean, every security officer should be on guard. So if I already have my orderly, he should be on guard, at least not to come and infringe on the rights of others and of the electorates who are casting their votes, but at least should be at the points where they can also help if violence break out. But it's also a shame or a wonder to me that in 2021, we're still talking about violence within elections, because we had it in the past. So everyone knows that once it's an election, once it's election season, we need to beef up security. When in other climes, all you need to do is to, at your convenience, just cast your votes, and then you're not at risk of being shut down by any insecurity, any bandits, or there's no fear of insecurity upheavals. So I feel like the police should have a look at this. It's not a totally bad idea, but I'm wondering, so it leaves the other parts of the country exposed for the number of days that they will all be, in the states, guarding the elections. So I just feel like, well, let's look at what the police is about to do. Is this actually a statement of fact, or he's just trying to encourage Nigerians to come out there to vote?
All right, fair point. Thank you very much, Mamuzo. Going back to the story on electricity and power, we have some comments. Yinka says, for the upteenth time, roles like Minister of Power, etc., shouldn't be by political appointment. Let qualified candidates apply for such roles. How can you tell me there's no gas, there's no water, and someone still has a job? When this government claimed they generated 7,500 megawatts, did we ask if it translated to light in our homes? I even wonder why there is no class, or there are no class action suits against some discos. And then going on to YouTube, Kenneth Oji says, Nwaji is completely right. Power is rocket science in Nigeria. So is everything in this government rocket science. Even basic dialogue is rocket science. Let's move on to our next story, Nwaji. Stop playing the ostrich. Obaseki fires back at federal government. This story has been, it's like a ping pong game, back and forth. Obaseki versus the government versus the Minister of Finance. So the Edo State Governor, Godwin Obaseki, yesterday urged the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, to rally Nigerians to save the tumbling economy rather than playing the ostrich. This was the governor's counter-reaction to the denial by the minister that he lied about his claim that the federal government printed between 50 and 60 billion naira to share among the federating units in March. And this is your first time commenting on this story, Nwaji, but it's been on this week, back and forth. What do you make of this claim by Obaseki?
I mean, I don't saying anything that's completely unfounded. Frankly speaking, he's just saying that, look, let's have this conversation. The economy is in a particular state, and we need to be able to engage in a dialogue that ensures that we, are able to talk about certain things. When you now go into the story itself, and I think for me, one of the things that really, really stand out is that, Emefiele, there was a reaction that in 2020 alone, CBN printed 2.86 trillion naira without matching the funds with propriety and economic activities. So here's my issue when you now have those kind of claims, and this is to the point that Obaseki is making, and then the counter reactions that we've been seeing and hearing all week, is that why are we borrowing money? I mean, the story is quite exhaustive because it now goes into borrowing money through ways and means to be able to now fund government. And government justifies that, the borrowing of those funds is being used for infrastructure and everything else. But it doesn't take a child to look around to know that there's no infrastructure, anything that's taking place. So Obaseki has every right to come out and say, we can challenge these things. He is a chief executive of a state. He is a custodian of a state, and he's in a very good position to know whether or not federal projects are happening, because there are federal highways that run through his state that connect one state to another. When you're looking at going from Ondo to Delta State, it happens to run through and traverse through his particular state. So he can speak on these things, especially when federal capital projects are not in place. So for me, it's going back to this point about rocket science once again, but then the federal government now needs to come out and be very transparent and honest. We have borrowed insurmountable amounts of money over the years to fund recurrent expenditure. And recurrent expenditure happens to be the salaries, the benefits, and the payouts to individuals in government. And I do not understand how you can continue to perpetuate any kind of realistic thinking or any kind of intellectual capacity and call yourself a well thought out individual if you continue to operate in that way. It is absolutely demoralizing and shocking. And that is what Obaseki is speaking to. How can we continue to operate in this particular capacity? How can we be honest with ourselves and say that we are doing the right thing, but these things go on? No, I mean, the way that these things work, you have dwindling revenues from oil. COVID-19 was a particular shock to the system, which now catapulted us back into a recession. So the conversation now becomes, how do you get yourselves out of it? If you're going to borrow money, you borrow money to stimulate activity to make up for losses. But we are borrowing money to make sure government people continue to drive their G-Wagon. And it's an absolute shame. It's an absolute shame.
Absolute shame. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nwaji. Vanguard, just to mention the last two headlines as we have to go, we're out of time. Buhari returns to Nigeria after medical checkup in London, just to mention that. And then finally, Lagos experienced 261-day rainfall, plans own weather stations. This was the Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tunji Bello, made this known at a state briefing and mentioned that Lagos is adequately they've provided adequate measures to ensure that they're in place to contain any eventuality that the maximum annual rainfall for 2021 is predicted to be 1,747 millimeters. Thank you very much to our fantastic analysts for doing justice to the stories this morning. A big thanks, Nwaji. Nwaji is at the Corporate MC, the Corporate with a K. And thank you, Mamuzo. Mamuzo is at Mamuzo and Wokoro, both on Twitter. We are at Smooth 981 FM. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. You can still share your thoughts on Twitter and take the conversation online. In a few minutes, we'll be talking sports in the Locker Room 981. Tega will be joining me then. Do stay tuned for the Locker Room 981. It's Smooth 98.1.
The headlines.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Aya.
Thank you. Thanks, Aya.
Thank you. All right, have a good one.